Dr. Silman is also a founding member of the American Angel Capital Association and the past president of the Crowdfunding Professional Association. He retired as professor of molecular genetics, biochemistry, and microbiology from the University of Cincinnati. Thank you for being here. And Mr. Inderit Singh. Mr. Singh serves as president and chief executive officer of Infinity Solutions, and also as a president of the Singapore chapter of the Indus Entrepreneurs, a network of entrepreneurs and professionals founded in 1992 in Silicon Valley in California. He has an extensive experience in semiconductor industry, working for several years at Texas Instruments, and he's also founded United Test and Assembly Center Limited, a Singapore-based semiconductor test and assembly company. Thank you for being here. And as for me, I'm Fotis Gonidis. I'm coming from the Southeast European Research Center in Greece. I'm a research associate there, and I'm also representing the Hellenic Business Agent Network here. Okay, so we gathered here today to discuss about possible ways and methods that a young entrepreneur can follow when he starts up his business in order to increase the success chances of the business. And why we are doing that? Because according to the statistics are a bit disappointing when it comes to the success of the business. So I think around 7 or 8 out of 10 businesses actually do fail. So we'd like to see and discuss whether we can do something about it. So actually there is a method, it's called the Startup Compass Theory. It's a method that proposes a way, and it describes key points that an entrepreneur needs to take when he starts up the business. This method has been proposed by Baibars Altundas. It's based on his personal experience. And what we did as the Southeast European Research Center, we wanted to investigate and validate this method. So last year, in the World's Business Angel Forum, again, we did a research, and some of the participants here were the interviewees of the last year. And today, we're going to have a follow-up discussion on this topic, and also briefly discuss and present our preliminary findings. All right, so let me now move on to the first question. I would like to ask you, Mr. Polekin, so what do you think are the biggest challenges that a young entrepreneur face when they start their business?
So I think that there are 3 types of challenges. So first is maybe cultural thing, because in every country there are different cultural reasons why people don't want to become entrepreneurs. So, for example, in Russia, many people want to do, and in some Eastern Europe countries as well, as I heard, people want to become the employee in a government organization or maybe in a big corporation. So nobody wants to do some startup, except some small percentage of people who maybe become real entrepreneurs. And maybe mothers, fathers also don't encourage it. They say something like, okay, go and get a real job. So last year I visited Japan, and for example, they have their own cultural thing, is because for many years they had lifelong employment. Like when you get to some corporation to work, you work for the whole life.
Retirement.
Yeah, you can change your job and move to other corporation. For example, if you were having a job in a small one, and then you go to Sony. But if you left Sony, then something wrong with you. So of course this actually stops and slows down innovation. And but now they found the solution. And okay, most innovations come not from the entrepreneur side, but from the corporation side. They do some co-workings and so on. So I think that first thing is cultural. Second thing is the fear of failure. So many people just afraid of failure, and actually, well, but there is a good expression, something like how to become, how to do a successful startup. It's just making right decisions. Yeah.
Right.
How you make right decisions because of experience. How you get experience making wrong decisions. So maybe it's not a good idea to be afraid of failures.
Right.
And well, I think that the third thing is that maybe wanting stability, or maybe wanting some stable things in life. And of course, startups and all these things, they are not associated with stability. But this is a totally wrong idea, especially, for example, in Russia or some Eastern European countries. Well, having just a stable job maybe will help you for some time, but at the end of the life, maybe people will face some serious problems with the financial support and some other things.
Right. It's pretty clear. Okay, so culture, the fear of failure, and stability are the key points. Thank you very much. And Dr. Sitman has a follow-up question. What do you think are the biggest mistakes that the young entrepreneurs do, and thus they fail?
I can come up with a couple. One would be not doing your homework, and the method that you've been researching is essentially a recipe for many of the things that you need to do to be a successful entrepreneur. And if you're not diligent, or if you're lazy and not do some of those things, then the outcome is not good. I would actually add one that's not on your list, which is false expectations. You expect it to be a sure thing or easy. And it's not a sure thing, it's not easy. And many attempts, doing all the right things, still don't succeed in the end. And that's just part of life. You have to accept that, and it should not be called a failure, it should be called learning, a successful experiment, and then your next experiment can be different. So I think you have to have a thick skin, a very high degree of humility to go with the diligence and the ambition and the confidence.
Right. So you would do encourage people to go out and try their idea, even if they have a, let's say, high chance of failure, because still they will learn from this experience, and they will benefit even from the failure.
I agree completely. And to make an analogy, in my previous life as a scientist, we would make what's called a hypothesis, a guess, and then we'd do an experiment to see if that guess or hypothesis was true, supportable. And 9 times out of 10, you decide, okay, your brilliant guess was wrong. Okay, those are still successful experiments. You've learned something, and then you move on to the next attempt or hypothesis.
Right.
So they're not failures, they're necessary activity.
That's clear. Thank you very much. And Mr. Singh, so again, to your opinion, do young entrepreneurs lack a systematic method and guidance when they start their own business? And also a follow-up question, how important do you think for investors is to have such a guide in order, say, to assess whether a startup is an interesting investment?
I think, first of all, we need to ask the question of whether can entrepreneurship be taught, or is it, inborn, you're born with it.
All right.
So,
Yes.
there's two schools of thought, or same for leaders, right? Whether leaders are born or you can learn. So I think if you believe that, and I believe that, we can learn, some skills, some tools, equip yourself with tools to increase your chances of success. So if we believe in that, then we need to create that ecosystem that can support them. So of course, for students in universities, most universities around the world that are focused on innovation and enterprise have created that kind of support structures, whether by way of accelerators or incubators, and then having mentors and having a support system that can help them improve their chance of success. One other thing that I believe about entrepreneurship, it's actually also a state of the mind, a mindset. It's not just about starting something and making a lot of money. It is also your thinking, and I've always believed in teaching. in school. So, some people challenge us when we start teaching entrepreneurship in school is whether are we expecting everyone to graduate to become an entrepreneur? My answer is no, but we want everyone to think like an entrepreneur. So we can create, that kind of education system in our schools, in the universities, where we train them to think like entrepreneurs as a mindset thing. If you, as an employee, can think like an entrepreneur, you can create new things for your company. If you are a school teacher and you can teach in an innovative way, you are thinking like an entrepreneur. So I think if, let's say, we can train our students, children from young, and then, in the future, their chances of success will be better because they've learned how to question and experiment and to think like an entrepreneur.
Right. It's very interesting. Thank you. So moving on to the core of the startup compass theory, one of the key points there is actually the exploitation of the idle capacity. So what the startup compass theory proposes that the young entrepreneurs go ahead and exploit the idle capacity offered to them. And by idle capacity, I refer to resources like office resources or tools or equipment or maybe some human resources that are offered to them for free. So it is mentioned there that it's pretty important to exploit this kind of idle capacity. So, Mr. Polechin, what is your opinion on that? And if you can reflect on your own experience when you were starting your own business, did you make use of this idle capacity, or would you recommend now to new entrepreneurs that they should do so?
So I totally agree, and actually, so in my experience, I had some spin-off from the company, which actually, instead of spending money on the creation of some value, spent money on some resources like office space, good service, or maybe some CRM system and some other stuff. And so huge amounts of money already spent, but no value created yet.
Right.
So that's why I totally support all these things which help to create idle resources, some co-working spaces, some innovation hubs, and so on. And I also personally participated in creating some of them in Russia. Yeah, so because well, this and not only office space and computers and some other things, but also some services like accounting services and legal services, which actually can be shared among many teams of entrepreneurs.
Dr. Sidman, what is your opinion on the topic?
Well, I think idle capacity is like a gift. You should certainly use it. If you don't have to pay for it and you can get what you need, then it's a no-brainer. I don't think this is central to entrepreneurial success, however. I don't know if you're going to get there, but I think the central thing for entrepreneurial success is interact with your intended customers.
Right.
That's the key. Whether you operate from the back of a car or your kitchen table or an incubator office space.
I see. Okay, interesting point. And Mr. Singh, what is your opinion?
I think it's a question of balance. If as entrepreneurs, all of us who've gone through the journey, we struggled to get all the resources, to get the support, and it was always not easy, but we made it. But if you make it too easy, then you may never be able to handle a tough time when it comes. And the entrepreneur journey is, you're going to face many obstacles. But having said that, there are some basic things like we can provide in an ecosystem. So we should not be spoon-feeding entrepreneurs, but a good ecosystem that can support them. So, when they need to look for money, there is a channel where they can get that financing, whether angel investors or VCs. But it should not be easy money. It still has to be smart money. So it does not mean that we make, every time you have an idea, I fund the idea. Idea must still be worthy to be funded. So we have an ecosystem that still makes you work hard, right, but does not bring in the problems of past entrepreneurs who could not even have that kind of support. And so I think so we have to be very careful. Provide mentors who have got experience and who can share about their stories, but you cannot possibly handhold the person throughout the journey. But the mentors can give you the ideas of the kind of difficulties they went through, how they overcome, and you can avoid the kind of mistakes. So I think it's a bit of a balance that you make it too easy, and you actually make higher chance of failure, not success.
Right. It's an interesting point. I think, Vibers, we ran out of time.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's very unfortunate. But things like that happen.
By the way, in the main room, there will be a fireside chat
Right.
with you. Again, about the same issue, and I think it will be good to move to main room altogether and join the conversation there.
Right. And
Yeah.
I would like a last point. We have the results of the research, of the last year research. It's this booklet. It was distributed to you in your bag. So you may have a look and read in the details. So thank you very much for being here today.